Alright guys, I'm continuing on putting the timing belt and water pump in, and both pieces are now back in. You can kind of notice that, let me put a light on you. There we go. What I did is, I should back up. We'll start with the water pump. The water pump is right there. Without the timing belt on, you can kind of see where it lays. I just took each bolt from the old pump, sat it in the new pump while it was on the bench, and then I laid the two pumps next to each other and transferred the hardware over to the new pump as once I had it up in place in there. I use this guy just to clean up the surface. On the block is steel, so it doesn't really erode into it, and a couple of the aluminum pieces I just hit real light because the wire brush will take out the aluminum. It'll wear it down, so you don't want to do that. And just to screw up Pisser a little bit, I made fun of his wire wheel he was using doing body work. That's what I was using. So put a new one on there, we're good to go. So I get my money's worth out of them also. So that, in any event, continuing on with the water pump. The old one had a metal gasket on it, kind of weird, and a bunch of brown RTV. The new one was a paper gasket, and I went with some high-tack sealant, and shouldn't be any issues there. So the new pump is on and in place. With the new pump, there's a thermostat housing kind of comes up over the top over here, and it has a knuckle there. There's a piece of tubing that goes in the back here. Change the O-ring on that piece of tubing. I put a very light film piece of grease on those O-rings just so they slip on better. The one being, try to see if it's right down in there, piece of pipe sliding into the back of the pump. And this is the thermostat housing, and on the thermostat housing where it goes into the block, there's a O-ring on that also. Just clean that up and slid that back in. No sealant, just a little bit of grease. Don't need any on there. So moving on with the timing belt, put a new pulley, idler pulley on this side, and this pulley with the tensioner on this side. Again, the tensioner is all the way down. It's kind of like doing a serpentine belt where you need like 9 hands to hold them on all the pulleys. So on this one, very lightly, there's a pair of vice grips just holding it. There's no pressure on them at all. It's just enough to hold it without damaging the belt or the pulley, just to keep it from falling off. And here's the timing marks. The block has one on it, the cylinder head rather. The belt comes with a line and saying right cam, left cam, and again the mark, and I am lined up to that. What I ended up doing was feeding the belt on everything. The very last thing that I put it on, as I tried a couple of different scenarios, was I left it about, just started on this one, slid out a little bit on this one, and worked it around this pulley right here. Finally got it up and over, and then just kind of kept working it back on. And once that was on, you probably have about a 1/4 inch of play in the belt, something like that. I did put a wrench on there. If you want to move the play back and forth, you got that little bit of a, as you're doing it, to get the slack out of the belts and get it where you need it. So I just popped the wrench on one of the cams. Down below, there is that tensioner. That tensioner is just a little gas shock. It's right here, and this gas shock has 2 bolts on it. That in turn pushes up this tensioner pulley. When you're putting this back on, I actually ended up wedging something up in between here. A pair of needle nose that had a tape on them, so you can kind of keep working it and get it up as far as you can, just so you can get the 2 bolts started. But this thing feels kind of mushy when you're putting it up because you're fighting a lot of pressure. So when you're running the 2 screws up, it feels like you're gonna crack it. So I just kept going back and forth with them a little bit at a time. I actually even tapped down here with like a rubber mallet, just because it doesn't pull straight up because the 2 bolts are off center. It's not like one's here and one's here where it would be an even pull. It wants to rack as you're doing it. So I just kind of tapped it with a rubber hammer and kept working it and slowly going up. Got it about 2/3 of the way up, so it's probably about a 3/8 of the gap here. Then I went up top and I just kind of watched it going back and forth, making sure I wasn't binding on anything, getting that up there. But she's on there now. All my marks look good. Let me kind of show you. You can see on the bottom. But, it's supposed to be a little divot in there. It's kind of hard to see. Kind of sucks. Actually looks like it's off a tooth, doesn't it? I don't know if they want to go with that mark or not. But looking at the top, which I went by, you can see that right there you are. You see that mark in the corner is lined up with the mark on the block, which is what it's supposed to be. That one's lined up, and that one's lined up. So I'm going by my cams being in the right position instead of what that mark is on the belt. If I try going another tooth, that would be way past that. We're gonna find out, aren't we? All right, so that's what I have on that setup. I'm not gonna try spinning it just because I have too much stuff hanging around. I'm just gonna keep assembling it together till I have pretty much everything but the coolant stuff on it. You know, get the serpentine belt on and all the pumps and everything back in place, and hopefully we'll be good to go. I might actually even put the bottom section together and spin that crank one time, just kind of make sure we're okay with those marks. Now I'm questioning myself. Anyway, that's where we are. I'll probably do a part 3 when she's all together and go from there. Thanks for watching.